Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, and today my guest is Rebecca from Pigeon Nest, otherwise known as Bex. Hi, Bex.
Hi.
I'm so glad you agreed to this interview. I love having you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for working out the US UK timing.
I know I'm becoming so good at this. I already I don't even have to Google it any longer. I'm just know on top of my head, it's gonna be 7 p.m. your time.
Love it.
So I've met you through the Yarn Whisper Katie, whom I also interviewed on my channel. And the first thing that caught my attention were the colors that you use because your account is so fun, so colorful, so unique looking. How long have you been crocheting?
So I'm coming up to, I think I'm literally in my decade now of crocheting. I taught myself when I kind of first moved in with my husband. We moved away from where I was living, to kind of his hometown, and my mum's always crocheted, but I'm one of five, and I'm the eldest, so she had no time. She had no time to teach me. I had no inclination to learn. But yeah, so I've been doing it now a decade. I learned from books, and yeah, it was something to pass the time, and I sort of got carried away.
So when you first started, how did you learn?
So I literally picked up a book. I chose a couple of books, and I actually started doing amigurumi first because granny squares, I couldn't work granny squares out
Right.
at all. And it took me maybe 4 years of crochet before I was brave enough to do a granny square. And this is what I now teach as the first thing to do. Um, but yeah, I actually first started making little birds and bunnies, and my mum literally was like, I don't know how you can do. I was like, I don't know how you do a granny square. I just can't fathom it. And she was like,
Right.
that's the easiest bit. And I'm like, no, it's really not.
I actually find the crocheting somehow confusing.
Hmm.
But the charts of it, not the crocheting itself, that's simple because the stitches are simple, right? But how to read the chart somehow confuses me because it looks like one of those paint by numbers paintings where there's so many different details and they're all going into different things and you don't
Yeah,
understand
I can't
do I go
crochet by
this way or that way and
yeah, yeah, I can't crochet by chart. I have to do it by literally written instructions. Um, I've always found I'm now as I've as I've progressed through time, I now can look at a chart and go, okay, I probably could follow that, but my brain just goes, this is easier. The bit of the math easier.
So how do you go from crocheting just to pass time, like a few toys, to becoming a crochet designer?
Um, it was again, you know what, my whole crochet kind of journey has been one big suck it and see, really. I started kind of creating, from other people's patterns, and then I realized if I wanted to sell them, which is something I've always done, all through uni, all through college, I have been making stuff and selling it, selling it to friends, selling it to, friends' parents, and people who are teachers would take stuff in for me for the staff room. I've always been kind of plying my wares, since I was kind of at uni. I was selling stuff on eBay, and so for me, when I got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to kind of fund this hobby a little bit, the instant I just went, well, I'll sell it. I'll sell stuff.
Right.
Um, my stepmom kind of put me onto Etsy, and I started selling on there, and I've been on there now since 2013. Um, but yeah, it's kind of gone from, I then realized that a lot of other designers' patterns, you can't sell their finished, you can't sell finished items from their designs.
Right.
So for me, I was just like, okay, well then I need to design some of my own stuff then. And it kind of just went from there. And that's kind of been it. And that's all I do now.
Right. So I saw in your stories today, actually, when you were talking about pricing your finished objects and how it's still a struggle and you still sort of tormented about it and how to come up with that price and. talk about it. Like, why is it so difficult for crafters to value their own work? Like, if you were to go to supermarket and bag groceries, you would have like absolutely no problem demanding fair pay for your work, right? Why is it so hard for us as artists to value it?
I think because we're not our customer. So if I want a one-of-a-kind crochet cardigan, I'll make it. And I'll do it around my kids. I'll do it in the 10 minutes before I start making dinner. I'll do it over a long period of time, but I'll do it. I've got the supplies. I've got the stuff. I know the know-how. I'll do it. So then and we're all like that. I think any artist, any designer, any maker, we are all like that because we enjoy the process. So then the idea of me going, oh, like trying to price my cardigans was horrific because I was like, oh my God, no one is going to pay this amount of money for the amount of time it takes me to make one of these. I made it for myself as for joy, like to make me happy and to freak out all the school mums, like, who is that woman? Which I do on a regular basis now. But I think for makers, we find it really hard to price our worth because we can't see the worth in it. And it's taken me, nearly 10 years. And I do now find it easier to price, but I still get the gremlins saying, oh, that's too much. Nobody's going to want it for that much money. And it's a constant, there's things now that I know that's the price of that. It's when I've got new designs and I go, oh, how much is that going to be worth? How much do people want this? Like, what's my time worth on this item? And I think it's just a muscle you have to practice using. And it's been a while since I've brought out something new. So for me because it's my new, this is what I was trying to price, it's these, my Christmas baubles. And of course it's something different that I've not done before, that I've got glass, I've got to package it, I've got so all different things that I'm not used to dealing with.
Right.
And I like sharing that on my Instagram. I like talking about that stuff because I know there's a lot of other small businesses who almost need that reassurance that I still struggle. Like, I'm 10 years in and I still go, oh, I don't feel comfortable pricing that. And actually my pricing policy is, I don't feel comfortable pricing that. So that's probably about right.
Well, let's talk about that little thing that you just made, right? That can take as long as like a cowl twice as large or 7 times as large, right? Just because it's little doesn't mean that it takes any less time. It's probably actually takes more and more effort to package and the whole thing, right? Do you have an issue pricing it because of that? Like because you think like yeah.
I think, yeah, because it fits in my hand. So I think almost mentally you go, well, this is a small thing, so therefore it should be worth a small amount. Whereas one of my cows, so like this size, I've got no problem saying, well, this is how much it is. So then you're like, but this feels like a lot of stuff, and this doesn't feel like a lot of stuff. And it can be really hard, I think, to get your brain around that. And it's taken me a long time to realize that actually the worth of the item is the fact that somebody else has not had to make it. So I'm saving them time. I'm saving them effort. I'm saving them a thought process. They can go, oh my God, my nan would love that. Or, oh my God, my friend would love that. Or, I love robins, I want one of those. And I'm saving all the bits, all the time, all that valuable thing that we never have enough of. I'm saving all the time for somebody else.
Right.
And that's what you've got to kind of work out the monetary value of. And you can never do that because it's so different for each individual person. There's stuff I now look at in my 30s and I go, oh yeah, I will pay that for that because I haven't got time. I haven't got time to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Whereas in my 20s, I would have been like, oh my God, I'm not paying that. I will make it to myself. And because now I've got small children and I have a house to run and I've got my business to run. And actually spending £25 on a headband that's made by another yarny person, who was like, Bex, you could have made this. And I was like, I know, babe, but honestly, you have the materials, you've made something beautiful, I'll have that. Thank you very much. You've saved me so much time of having to do it myself. Thank you.
Right. Well, as a designer, does that ever frustrate you? Because, like, on one hand, you have ideas, right? You're very creative. On the other hand, you know what's gonna sell, you know what's looks expensive, whereas it takes less time, right? Do you feel like you compromise your integrity sort of as a designer working because you're selling your final product?
I don't think so, because I don't make to have any integrity. Does that sound awful? Like, I make because I love it. I make because I want people to smile. I make because it makes, my business is an entirely selfish act. It makes me really happy. People often ask me, when do you get time for you? Like, when do you do stuff for you? And I'm like, all the time. Like, you guys are just fueling me. Like, I get to run my business. This is my time. This is my fun. This is nothing to do with my kids, nothing to do with my husband, nothing to do with my outside life. This is mine. And this is my joy. So in the beginning, when I first started, I was like, I just need money to just keep buying more supplies. And now, now I've got 2 kids, and I'm at the point where actually I'm thinking, I don't want to go back to work. So this, for me, I need it to be a business, so I can fit it around my family. And I think there's a big culture of, this is art, so therefore you need to be a certain person to consume it, or a certain person to make it. And actually, I'm really about saying, actually, art is for everyone, and it doesn't have to have any sort of, it doesn't have to have any integrity. It can just make you grin. It doesn't have to be up on a certain level. I want people to wear my work. I don't want people to like hang it on a wardrobe and it just be there and be beautiful. I want it to be practical. I want people to wear it. I want people to grin when they put it on,
Right.
or when they see it in their, when they see it on a shelf. I want them to go, oh, it makes me happy.
Well, when I look at your Instagram page, right? It's very distinct colors. Like, you have your own sense of colors. And I'm sure that there are like more conservative people who find it too bright, too happy, too colorful, right? You do a lot of custom work, like when the people order from you and you work according to their specifications. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the complete artistic freedom when you like do whatever comes to your mind, or do you like actually the commissions?
I like a bit of both. Can I have both?
Yeah.
I like a bit of both. That's why I do both. I get bored quite easily, so it's quite nice to be able to go, oh, okay, and now I'm at the moment I'm actually putting this as a blank, this strip here. Somebody sent me all these granny squares from under their stairs that have been there since they cleared out their nan's house. I do, part of my crochet business is I now run a service called No Crochet Left Behind. So I will fix broken crochet. I will repair your nan's blanket from 6 years ago. So these are all squares that her grandmother made, that she of course never had managed to make into a blanket. So I'm now doing that for her to send back to her. But that is a completely different kind of project to me making one of these.
Right.
And it's then a completely different project for me making one of these. And I quite like it. I quite like the complete chop and change. I like having about 12, if I didn't run my own business, I don't have any, I've got one personal whip running at the moment, making a jumper for my son, which probably will not be finished by Christmas. It's a personal one, it's not going to get done. But I think just looking around my kitchen now, I've got at least 12 orders, like whips running, and it's quite nice because I can pick something up and put something down. I quite like having lots to do, and it's all different.
When you work and you have 12 different projects running at the same time, right? And there you have 2 small kids who also doing all their things, and you have to do gazillion of things with them, with the house, with the cooking, which you love. I know. It was also in your stories how like you wish that dinner didn't have to happen every
Oh
single
God, I
day.
just wish dinner would cook itself some nights, you know, just staring at my oven, wishing that something would put itself in there and cook it.
Right. But like when you work on your unfinished projects, do you keep detailed notes of like what you've done, where you are, where you have to go? Or is it like every time you approach a project, it's again a new page?
Um, it depends on what I'm doing. At the moment, so for example, at the moment, I've got some crochet pumpkins I need to do. They are literally just sat on the shelf, and I'll pick them up, and I kind of know where I am, and I'll finish it because it's. I guess when you're doing work that's your own pattern, like, as well, I can just pick that up and finish it. And I have worked standing up. So my eldest is 5; he's 6 in March. I have worked standing up for nearly 6 years now. Just used to having that as well. But when they were when my eldest was really small, I used to have baskets of work stashed all over the house. So if I got stuck in a room with him, I had something to do that wasn't like trains. But I always have stuff running. So I always have like a bag of granny squares on the go, because during the winter I always make I make scarves, loads of them in the winter. So I've always got granny squares on the go. I've got at least, I can see at least 5 things up there that I can literally just pick up, and I know where I am on it. I think doing your own patterns definitely helps that, because I sort of know where I am in a lot of stuff. But I may have like 12 projects orders ready to half do, but they're in a queue.
Right.
So I'll kind of like pick up where I can and drop off where where I'm struggling with, but like what time of day it is.
Do orders or like crocheting and different, is it stressful for you or is it like super relaxing for you?
It depends on how many I've had. It depends how many I've got in the queue, because normally have a 2 to 3 week turnaround. So I think when I get to the point where I can see that they're going to get overdue, it gets a bit like that. That's mainly because I don't want to disappoint my customers, but with the turnaround time, and not because I'm not enjoying the process. I think it can be really easy to make your hobby your business and then start to hate it. But the crochet bit for me of my business is the best bit. It's the bit I love doing. It's all the admin. It's not the not fun bit. It's the
Do
rubbish
you
bit.
do you challenge yourself like as far as techniques? Like do you try to incorporate something new, something more difficult, something more complicated, or like because it's mostly for sale, you try to just like make it faster, easier?
I tend to. It depends on what people want. This is what I find as well, because I have a really good really good relationship with my followers on Instagram and things. They all say, "Can you do XYZ?" And I'm like, "I'll have a go. Give me a couple of weeks, and I'll get back to you and let you know." So last year I made granny square skull scarf for somebody for Christmas. That's what they wanted to order, and it was a pain, but I did it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, now I know how to do these. Amazing." So yes, but maybe not like in November. That's not fun doing it in November.
Do you prefer like large projects or do you prefer to have something small that's like in and out sort of thing?
Um, always both. Always both. I like to have choice. It's quite nice having a big project to see it finish. I think sometimes the quick projects, you're like, "Oh, and it's done. Okay, I'll move on to something else now." But the big ones, like the big blankets and stuff, is really nice to know they're nearly finished. I think that apart from then you have to do ends, but that's the worst bit, isn't it? You get to like almost finished and you're like, "I'm so nearly done," and then you're like, "Oh God, oh God, I haven't done any ends. This is rubbish. Why did I do this to myself again?"
Right.
But yeah, I quite like the speed, like being able to knock out quite a few projects to get things kind of done. But yeah, it's not. I think the achievement factor of finishing something big is probably better than doing a small one.
Talk about your photography a little bit because you have some very interesting pictures there.
Well, it's all had to be self-taught, because I had no idea, and I do everything on my phone. I'm doing this on my phone.
Right.
But yeah, I have kind of just, I guess, developed a style of doing my photos. And yeah, I like to have fun. This is the thing, like if Instagram, like for me, if it became a bit of a chore, I just wouldn't do it. And I've stopped. I mean, of course, when you first start, you're like, I've got to put up pictures that people are going to like. And now I really don't care.
Right.
I put up pictures that I'm having fun doing. I make reels that I think are funny. And actually, if anybody else doesn't, it's okay.
Right.
But are you asking about the pigeon
Well, there is
portrait?
this one picture of Madonna,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and then there is Queen Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
So, how did you come up with those ideas? Let's talk about.
So I'll explain what the series is. So I do something called Pigeon Portraits, which is a photography self-portrait series I started doing. I trained as an actor, so I can't help showing off. I quite like dressing up. And it was back years and years ago now. I must have been pregnant with my eldest, so it's been going on for like 5 years. But I needed headshots, actually. I needed headshots for a project. I was working with a big yarn brand here in the UK, and I needed like proper headshots. And all the ones I had from my acting career were like stoic and boring. And I was like, that's not who I am. So I decided to do a Rosie the Riveter kind of style pose, bandana, ball of yarn in my hand, like a couple of crochet hooks, like. And I posted it on Instagram, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is brilliant! This is so much fun!" And I was like, "Well, that was fun." And it sort of snowballed. I then did Frida Kahlo. I did the girl with the yarn earring. I've got a few pictures here. I'll show you a few. So I've done things like this. And then I started moving into stuff. I've done Wilma Flintstone. But it's just, I get to have fun with yarn, and I can share it, and it's fun. And I don't have to, like, you said, I've done Freddie Mercury. This was hilarious to do. I had to have a shower after I did it because I was glued. It literally was like glued to me. I've done Amy Winehouse, but it's fun. This is why I do it, because it's fun. And I'm really hoping to show people that you don't have to be creative in a traditional sense. You don't have to be able to draw. You don't have to be able to paint. You don't have to be able to take beautiful photographs of landscapes. You can, stick yarn on your head and pretend to be Amy Winehouse. You can this was like a kilogram of yarn. This was a lot. You can be Marie Antoinette for the morning,
Right.
and then go pick up your kids from playgroup. Madonna was a lot of fun because I crocheted the whole pointy bra. That was a lot of fun because actually I phoned the yarn whisperer that morning because it'd been a while since I'd done a portraits, and I was like, I've had a lot of new followers since I've done my last portraits. People are going to think I'm mental because there's been like a little bit of a gap, and I was like, all these new people who have arrived via reels are going to think I've actually lost the plot. So I phoned him in like full Madonna garb at like 10 a.m. I dropped my kids off at playgroup from school and then phoned him in the morning. And of course, he's life luxury. He's had his kids ages ago. So he woke up and he literally just woke up to my phone call with me as Madonna. And he was like, oh, this is amazing. This is brilliant. Right. But yeah, it's a project that gives me a lot of joy. And actually, that's the only reason I do it. And I think.
Do you plan them like ahead of time? Do you plan like who is next? Do you already have like
I
ideas?
generally have about 3 or 4 floating around. I've got one. I try to not do too many in the same, like almost the same colorways. So I did Prince last. Bellatrix Lestrange is kind of floating around, but I can't do her yet because I did Prince last time. So it's 2 lots of black hair in a row, and I'm like, well, I can't do that. But I've got an idea for my next one, and they are coming up in a couple of weeks. But I am awful because I'll literally drop the kids off and be like, today's the day, and like go home and start like, and I'll be like, I've got so many other stuff to do. And I'll just be like, I'm just sorry, I'm just painting myself like a Celtic warrior today. And it's, the thing is, my kids don't even blink anymore about it. Like, I would sometimes do it in nap time. So I did Bodicea in like full Celtic face paint. And my son woke up, my youngest woke up from his nap, and I was just like, hi babe, and went in, and it doesn't even fade. Like, they're just like, oh, mum. Like,
Let's talk about Mr. Pigeon for a second, which is like, this is how you call him. How does he react to all of that? What's his thoughts about this becoming your career?
I think in the beginning he was like, that's nice, babe, you've got something to do. Like, when I was when we first had our eldest, and I was like, well, we worked it out, and it didn't make sense for me to go back to work. I worked shifts, I worked in a care environment. I sometimes would have to do overnights at a drop of a hat. It was quite a stressful job, and we worked out that actually after childcare it was literally not worth me going back to that particular job. And I think I said, right, okay, well, while I'm off, I'll kind of push the biz a bit and see if I can do anything with that, mainly for my sanity, because I didn't think that I needed a bit of me, a bit of something that was just mine, that wasn't going to be mummied, like mummified. But I'm very lucky. I'm not going to say I'm very lucky because my husband married. So he's like, well, I know what you're like. This is what the thing is. What you guys see on stories and you see on my, that is just how I am all the time. So my husband is just like, well, that's
Her.
Beck. That's what she's like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think it's never been a shock to any of my friends or of my family or our family. They're just like, oh, that's just how she is. Like, I think I think in the last couple of years, he's realized how much this has changed our life. I think after I'd had our eldest, that first year I fed our family for that entire year, from my little business, from my little hobby. I put food on the table every week. And I think there's a lot of difficulty sometimes with women in business who do find that their partners are not supportive. But he is super supportive, and in the last year, actually, he's been flexing his own creative muscles and making stuff for the shop as well. I mean, I've got to crack the whip because he's getting a bit behind on some of the stuff I need him to make. But yeah, I think because I think it's given him the freedom to be creative as well, which is great. Like, because I live a fully creative, everything is about making stuff all the time, and he has a desk job. So for him, he can see now that he actually gets a chance to be creative as well, and it's all right.
Does he ever complain about all the supplies that lying around?
No, because he's got his own office. So that's my argument. If he doesn't want the yarn, then we have to swap. So he can have the kitchen office, and I will have his lovely office. I'll have the whole room. But no, he's very understanding. He's very supportive. But there is a lot. I mean, all in our kitchen. But he's super supportive.
When did you start teaching?
So I started teaching. I taught in person. I taught in person in like 2015. So I think I'd been crocheting for 4 or 5 years, and I started doing granny square classes. So I taught myself to granny square, and then it was like, okay, now I can teach people. So taught granny square classes on a really small basis. I had a little studio before I had my eldest, which I shared with a friend, and yeah, I did that, and then had my eldest and went, oh, I don't think I can do classes for a while. And then for a long time, I was like, well, I can't, I found it really difficult to juggle in person. And the year actually in 2020, at the beginning of the year, thought, I might have a look at doing some learn to crochet courses. I think maybe that's something I might do. Pandemic hit, and where I thought, oh, I might get my course out in September, I'd launched it by August. I'd done it, and Mr. Pigeon had been off for like 2 weeks at the beginning because we were meant to be on holiday, and I smashed through loads of stuff like work-wise because I didn't have to look after the children.
Right.
So I got loads of stuff done. But yeah, I actually am a part of a group. I don't know if Katie from the Arm Whisperer talked about our indie roller. They were really supportive because like teaching crochet is a really saturated market. There are lots of people who do it, and they showed me my worth of me doing it, that people would want to learn from me. And it's, it's not all bells and whistles. I didn't want it to feel like that. I wanted it to feel like people had come to my house and I was teaching them, because that's the way I would like to learn.
Right.
I think sometimes people can feel a bit put off by learning if things feel a bit too kind of like professional in the nicest possible way. I would much rather be approachable than professional. And yeah, and it means that my students know that if they've got any issues, and they do, they can pop in my DMs, they can pop me an email, and I can be like, right, okay, let's sort you out, let's get you going. Because I want them to learn. I want people to be creative. I want people to crochet. I want to do it.
Do you feel like because you are not traditional sort of crochet artist, like, I mean, and I mean it in the best way, like it's a compliment, um, that you are so inventive with color and so free and like an artistic with colors, right? And with what you do you feel like that gives permission to people to try something that they wouldn't try otherwise?
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. Um, I can really see within the community, the younger generations coming up, and people want craft and crochet to be accessible. They want it to not be things that their nans make. And I mean, I love a blooming granny square. I love a granny square blanket, and it's giving people the freedom to express themselves and not feel like it's not okay. So if I'm super loud and super bright and super over the top, then people can just be a little bit more over the top, a little bit more colourful, and it's okay because I'm way worse. So
Right.
I'm all about signing those permission slips and saying, well, if you're ever feeling like you're overdressed, just look at me and you'll feel fine. Like, so that's kind of where I pitch it.
Right. Do you like trying different materials to crochet with?
I've tried a lot. I've done like the big I made like recycled t-shirt yarn to make rugs and things. It's just so heavy. It's so heavy. Like I've done plastic bags and things like that. And I work with like a lot of metallic threads as well. But yeah, I actually really enjoy kind of having a try at something different, and a different weights and different, mixing those things. Love it.
Do you prefer like certain weight of yarn? Is there like something that you usually work with, or you jumping in between?
I am generally an Aran girl because I prefer the squish. Like it's got a certain squish. Chunky for me, I think, and gets too heavy. So I quite like an Aran. But I am known to stray if a colour grabs me. So I know with usually I can't get a certain yellow. I quite like quite a bright yellow. I can only get that in DK. So what are you going to do? Just have to.
Is it hard to have a friend like Katie?
No, he's the best.
No, but I mean for your like family budget to have somebody who is that creative.
No, because Katie and I actually work. When we first met, I messaged him. Well, he messaged me first and said, "Did you want to work on a project together?" And I'd been drooling over his yarn, and I was like, "Oh my god, I would love to work on a project with you." And I think he thought like a pattern. And I was like, what I want to do is dress up in your yarn. And he was like, okay, babe, let's do it. So he does a tarot collection. So he pulls a tarot card, he dyes the yarn to that tarot card, what he imagines. And then I take the yarn and then I reimagine the card as a portrait. So almost again, as one of my pigeon portraits, I reimagine it as a tarot card. Which means he sends me yarn, so I don't have to dig into the budget for it, which is lovely. But yes, it is dangerous. And I have to keep saying to him, I'm not looking at what you've got, because if I do, but yeah, I have got to the point where I was like, babe, I'm running out of room. Can you just give me a couple of weeks? I'm running out of room so I can make some stuff.
Do you like have a budget for yourself when you buy yarn, or do you go like when you buy yarn, are you disciplined about it? Do you buy for specific projects, or is it just like, color is pretty?
I've run my business kind of, I don't actually buy a lot of yarn for personal use because it's all for everything. It's a big mix. But I used to, until a couple of years ago, because now I have to kind of pre-buy, especially for the kits, I need to pre-buy. But no, I'm generally, so someone would commission something and then I'd buy the yarn and then it would be kind of that sort of turnover. Now, because of kits, I have to pre-order it in. But no, there is never a budget. There's never a budget because I generally just buy what I need. I try not to look at the shiny stuff. I have bought some new yarn, which I have no idea what I'm going to use for yet, but I couldn't let it sit there in its pastel unicornness. I couldn't leave it. It had to go in the basket. But I think it's going to make some really lovely, some of the snoods. I think it would make a really lovely snood. So I do one-offs of those with just stuff I've got. And I think sometimes they don't make it to the sale page. Right. Sometimes they just stay for me.
Why did you decide to do the kits? Like, what was the idea? Why complicated?
So I started doing kits because when I was talking to people about learning to crochet, people were put off by the fact they didn't have the knowledge of what a 4mm hook was, what yarn should go with what hook. So actually doing kits made it easier for people to access. And I don't want anyone to feel like they can't start a craft, start a hobby, because they didn't have the information. Whereas if I just go, right, this is what you need, this is the yarn that goes with it, until you're ready to kind of work out your next project, this is your project now, here you go. And it's all here. And you can literally make it out of the box. And so that's why I want to do kits, because I want to make it super accessible for people who are nervous about starting.
Right. Do you, when you see people making your pattern, using your kits or not using your kits, what does it feel like?
It is utter joy, because somebody is taking time for themselves and making something and being creative. You know, I think we're told when we're very young that we're not good at this and we're not good at that, and it's not, you know, it's not helpful to do something creative for no reason. And actually, I think it's vital for our mental health. I think this is why there is such a big community of makers and crafters and knitters and crocheters, because actually we need that outlet. We all need that creative something. And seeing people achieve, like some people who have never picked up a crochet hook before, who then message me and go, I've done it, I've done a square. I'm like, yes, well done, next one, let's go. You know, and I'm there with my pom-poms. I'm there to cheerlead, because it means that somebody has found space and time for themselves, and it's so, so important.
Well, do you ever get down? Like, are you always a cheerleader, or do you get depressed? Do you feel like, are there times when business doesn't go as planned? That is there a time when like sales are slow?
Oh, always, always. Like over the summer, August, not a sale, dead as a dodo. But Christmas is always coming. Christmas is always coming. Quarter 4 is always coming. My kids were off for the summer. So actually, Like in the grand scheme of things, life will continue. Christmas is like Q4 is always coming. So if sales are slow, I just prep for Christmas. But yeah, there's been some things that I've really kicked myself over and gone, oh man, you know, I shouldn't have done that. Like, okay, right, reassess, reschedule. But I'm quite lucky in the way that I think I've been brought up in a way of, well, if it all goes tits up, you can always come home. So I always play quite big, because if it all goes tits up, I can just move back in with my mum. So that's kind of you know, if you don't take risks and if you don't try, if you don't ask, you don't get. That's a massive one for my dad. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't try, you'll never know. And if you fall on your face, well, then at least you've tried. And I think, you know, I think a lot of businesses get that fear of putting out new products, whereas I'm like, guys, I'm doing this thing. If you want it, it's here. If you don't want it, that's fine. Like, there it is. You can take it. And if it flops, I think, well, what, you know, then I go, okay, that didn't work. And all right, next thing.
How do you find your audience? And I'll explain you why I'm asking this question. So I have a friend who is a knitter, but now he also got into the weaving, and and like all his followers are knitters, and you know, now he's trying to sell his weaving stuff, and he's like, how do I find audience for that, right? Because people who know how to knit or crochet or weave, they're not gonna buy it because they know how to do it. So it's one thing when you're selling designs, it's another thing when you're selling your final finished product. How did you establish that customer base? How did you find them? Who are those people who buy it?
Yeah, so I think first of all, like in the early days, Facebook worked. And this is the thing, I think I started kind of a Facebook page and kind of talked about it a lot. But I think the biggest thing that sells my stuff is me. And I don't say that that sounds so big-headed, doesn't it? Like, it's me. But I think people want to buy my finished stuff who can't crochet because they've been tagged by somebody who can. So, you know, it's almost, I get a lot of people's friends tagging their friends being like, oh, this lady does it. I said, please don't ask me again to make anything for you. This lady will do it for you. And I get a lot of that because a lot of my followers are crocheters and knitters and yarny people.
Right.
But then I've got a massive section of my community that are here for the noise, for the whole show, for the behind the scenes, for, you know, my reels, for me sitting on my kitchen floor crying that no one is going to cook anybody else's dinner and it's me for the rest of my life. It's, I think once you give a bit more of yourself to your community, and I don't mean you have to share all your deepest, darkest secrets. I give a lot of myself to my community, because if I didn't, I live in the middle of nowhere with 2 small children and my husband who works from home. I probably would have lost the plot by now. It's my social. It's my, hi guys, and then I can talk to my friends, you know, my friends and my followers in my DMs. I sometimes don't actually hear from my real friends for weeks, but they feel like they see me every day because I'm in stories.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like being yourself and sharing stuff about your life really helps because you build that follower base of people who are invested in you as a human being, you succeeding, you achieving, and you know, doing the day-to-day stuff in your life. And it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't have to be the deep and meaningful. People are happy to watch me clean my kitchen.
Well, I was very happy to watch your children dust. Like,
know,
how good does it get? I swear, if those boys want to come to my house, I would love to have. I'll cook.
But like the amount of DMs and chat I got today about my eldest, I'm just literally telling him, baby, you don't have to clean anymore. And he's like, no, I want to clean. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna drink my tea. The amount of DMs and like chat I get about that is because it's the day-to-day stuff. It's the relatable content. It's the relatable stuff. It's all very well. My feed of Instagram could be, here's my product, buy it. Here's my thing, buy it. Here's my thing, buy it. But actually, like, that doesn't tell my followers anything. It doesn't tell them anything about me. It doesn't make any connection. sharing a piece of negative feedback, that is one of my latest grid posts, sharing something that, you know, a few years ago would have maybe floored me and being a bit vulnerable, saying, this is a bit rubbish, isn't it? I hope you're all having a good day. And this is why you should speak nicely to people, is letting them into the back room.
Right.
I think that's really important and I think that's how I've built up my kind of follower base, and because they know as well, they know what they're getting. I don't.
Well, talking about the negative reaction, negative feedback, does that happen a lot? Is that common? And how do you, like, okay, do you remember like the first time somebody made you feel really bad about the product you sold them? Like, how do
Oh
you
yeah.
deal with it?
Oh yeah. You know what? Doing live shows, like doing events in person, trial by fire. If you want to know if your stuff is good, do a real life show, because people will tell you to your face. I've had kids, because my stall was always, of course, very kid friendly, like amigurumi animals and squishy stuff, and very kid friendly. And you'd have kids coming over going, oh, "Mummy, I want one," and then just being like, "Oh, honey, Nanny can make you one of those." Like literally to my face, "Honey, I'm not paying that much money for that. Nanny can make you one." And being like, I, you know, the first few times you're like, "Oh, ouch, okay," but then you learn to kind of roll with it, or you just kind of go, "Oh, amazing, she's got one of my patterns. I'm not sure how she got it, because I wrote this one myself."
Right.
And yeah, I think the best one, I was sat down behind my stall and I couldn't be seen, and I think she was maybe about 10, and this girl picked up and went, "Oh my god, this would be so easy to do." And I stood up and I was like, "I would love to see you make one." And she just literally went, "Oh my god," and left. And you just think, I don't have to be nasty, I just have to go, "You know what, I would love to see you do it." And they go, "Oh god, but there's a real human here who will answer me." And I think, yeah, that's how I've dealt with trolls online as well. You know, there's a real human here who actually doesn't really care what you think about me being an idiot, like online.
What's the best thing about social media for you?
um the social part of social media. I would have never met some of the people who I speak to every day without social media. I would have never been able to grow my business to the place it is now without social media. It it has been such a vital tool to use. But like with Kaiti, I speak to Kaiti every day. And if it hadn't been for Instagram, we wouldn't have met. Like we wouldn't have been, oh, if it hadn't been for the Facebook group, we wouldn't have now be, you know, he is literally like another brother, which is amazing. My kids, if my kids hear him on a video call, they are in the room. Like they're like, "Guys, I want to show you my drawing. I've made some letters." You know, he's part of the family.
Right.
And I wouldn't have the community around me to feel supported to do some of half the crazy stuff I do without that support. Because yeah, my husband's used to it, so he's like, "That's nice, babe, you know, that's great." And sometimes you need someone to go, who's not in your circle, to go, "Yes, I totally agree with that," or "Yes, I totally relate with that," or "Yes, that's amazing, I love those colors." And my husband has no idea about color palettes. He has no idea about color, you know, at all. It's not in his wheelhouse. So to have people go, "Oh yes, that palette is just everything," you're just like, "Yes, it is, isn't it?" It's that connection. It's somebody else almost validating your choice of the day. Like,
Right. Well, it's also like I find that I just came from Rhinebeck, and seeing like all the people who love doing what you love doing, and being able to like walk by you and appreciate the difficulty of the item that you're wearing, it just like different sort of high.
yeah, definitely. I've got a few followers who send me stuff from other people's accounts, and they apologize recently. "I'm so sorry if I'm spamming your inbox." I was like, "Oh my god, no, this is all stuff that I wouldn't have found. This is amazing. I love this that you sent me. I've gone and followed them." And it's almost that, you know, I saw this and thought of you. It's that little, you know, it's it's such it's a community, and it becomes so it's so lovely. It is so lovely. Like, this is the
Right.
thing. I think people sometimes are a bit frightened of social media and that it can be a bit cold. Um, but actually, I've just found it lovely, and everyone's
No, and
generally
it's funny because like one of the reasons I decided to do this channel was for the same reason, because I wanted to introduce my favorite fiber artists to my followers, but then people that I interviewed, like when I interviewed Kaiti, his first thing after we were done with the interview, he was like, "You have to talk to this girl," right? And it happens like more and more. Like people who I interviewed then DM me and they're like, "Have you seen this account? Have you seen this account? You should talk to this guy." And to me this is like the best feedback because it means that they enjoyed the interview also, you know. Right.
yeah, I love that. I think I love the sense of community that social media has brought, because if I didn't have that community that reached across the country, across the globe, it could feel really isolating doing what I'm doing in a more traditional craft.
Right.
I think if I went into my local town, I live in the middle of nowhere. If I went into my local town, it literally would be women maybe twice my age doing things very traditionally in a very traditional way. And I would feel I think I would feel a bit ostracized because I'm very different to possibly the people who are in my town, in my village. Um, but because I've got this community that loves color and loves, loves crochet, are happy to be themselves, that actually it kind of rubs off on you. You kind of get this armor on every day, because you're like, actually, if somebody in the street looks at me like I'm a prat, it's all right, because actually 3 people this morning in my DMs have said, you look lovely today. So actually,
Right. So what's your dream? Like where do you see your business going? Where, like, what's the plan?
the plan is there is no plan. There's never a plan. This was never planned. Um, what I would love to do is keep this business running so I can support my family and work around my kids. I don't want to go back to a 9 to 5 and have to do the whole juggle of, oh no, he's sick, so I've got to call in to somebody. And actually, I don't think I could go back to a normal job now. I get to be creative every single day, and I think I would really miss that. Um, the care sector I worked in before was with young people, and yeah, I think now looking back, like some of the work I did with them, I did a lot of like theatre, drama, singing, and like being super, up to 12 volume. And I realise now that it's because I needed that creativity fuel every single day. And so that would be the dream, is to make it kind of viable for me to kind of stay doing what I'm doing, to just crochet forever and make other people crochet forever. That would be quite nice. That's what I'd like to do.
I love that. Well, thank you so very much for being my guest today. I really enjoyed our conversation and I hope your dream come true. I hope you're gonna be crocheting forever and teaching all the people how to crochet forever. And I actually might take one of your classes and finally learn how to do a granny square.
Do it, do it. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been super lovely.
Yeah, I loved meeting you. Thank you.